joining me. I am JonChristopher Collins, your host, news and podcast director here at KECC 98.1 Muse FM, soon to be rebranded to, well, I couldn't tell you. But anyway, it is the 31st of October, 2019. It is a Wednesday. Did I just say Wednesday? It is a Thursday. Wow. Halloween is upon us. So here we are. I've been wanting to do this episode for a while. Many of you know I had my friend Victoria Guerra on. We talked about spiritual emphasis and spiritual life here on campus. And I've really been wanting to get new voices on this podcast and discuss those same things with new people. One of those new people is Jonathan Falconer. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, guys, this is a long time in the making, me getting Jonathan here. We have been essentially playing tag, trying to, match our schedules, and it's worked out today, so I'm so happy. He'll be with us for about 20 minutes or so today. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell us about yourself? You're a freshman, and your major is?
Yeah, I'm an English major. I also have a writing and music recording technology minor in there, too, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you clearly have an interest in music, then.
I am a total music and book nerd.
Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome. Favorite kind of music?
Ooh, that's tricky. I listen to a whole variety of genres. I've been known to listen to Broadway musicals, big band, 90s Christian music, the best. Just saying. But now I'm like...
DC Talk?
DC Talk there. A little bit there too, yeah.
Cool. Favorite musical, since you brought it up?
Fiddler on the Roof. It is a classic, and I absolutely adore the music in it. It's a very good story.
Cool. So did you do musical theater in high school?
Yeah, I did musical theater for a couple years in high school. My freshman year of high school actually was in our production of Fiddler on the Roof. That's kind of what made me fall in love with it a bit. And I was a very bad actor back then, so I was definitely overdoing it in many spots, but it's grown to be one of my favorites. I also was Mufasa in our production of The Lion King Jr.
Very nice.
And my sophomore year, I was the spoiled rich kid in a murder mystery farce called While the Lights Were Out. It was super fun. I also was in the ensemble for our production of Tarzan the Musical.
Wow.
Very demanding work when it came to getting ready for it. Since I was one of the gorillas, we had to do a bunch of workouts to get ourselves in shape for doing it because we were down a lot during the show. So
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I only starred in one musical in my time in the high school because the others I just wasn't all that interested in. But I loved drama. I was in drama for I think 3 years, pretty sure. But I was in The Drowsy Chaperone, if you're
familiar
with
one, yeah.
that musical, and so that was fun. So anytime I'm able to chat musicals with people, it's always fun. So.
Indeed. Actually, if you don't mind me bringing this up,
we
have Night on Broadway coming up from the theater department. It is a Broadway music review. It's on November 22nd and 23rd.
Coming up.
Showtimes are at 7 o'clock each night. We are doing the show to benefit the students over at Weller Elementary, so you can bring either a clothing donation item or a $5 cover charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's all for them. We've got a nice mixture of classic Broadway and new Broadway, so with some nice little surprises in there.
Fantastic. So guys, try to make it out there if you can. We're going to have this podcast out long before those dates, so it should give you time to plan. If you'd like to be there, you should be able to plan around your schedule to be there. So without further ado, let's get into the topic at hand here today. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, one of my goals now is to really dive into people's spiritual experience here on campus. I know for myself, it has been nothing short of amazing. I've really enjoyed my time here. And as a senior, it's gotten a little bit nostalgic over the past few months. I'm not going to lie. But I want to talk with you. You experienced your first spiritual emphasis week just a few weeks ago, really, beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
And I believe it was September.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. What did you think?
It was something else, I will say that much. I've heard a lot of people on campus compare it to like church camp, which having grown up in a Christian house, that's kind of been my experience with things. Like,
right.
It was very nice, for lack of a better word. Since I come from a non-denominational church background, I do have some Pentecostal background, but seeing it a bit more present during a spiritual emphasis week, it was both a little bit not off-putting, but like a little bit surprising, but also really good because you could definitely see God's Spirit moving in that room. And I do have a specific memory of, like, my roommate came and prayed for me about something that he kind of knew I was dealing with at that point in time, and my outlook has definitely shifted ever since that point in time.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that is definitely, I'm always amazed to hear stories where people have had a distinctive experience. Mm-hmm. Like what you just did. You were able to point out a specific experience that you went through in that time. And like you're saying, I think it is interesting. Evangel is clearly an Assemblies of God affiliated school. But the cool thing is we have people from different denominational backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And so being able to experience that, and like you said, it might be somewhat uncomfortable at first for those who aren't around it as much. But I think over time, it becomes much more at home. You become much more at ease in that experience. So that's very good to hear.
And I consider it a blessing that I've had some of that background before, so I kind of knew what to expect going in.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So, excuse me, moving forward from that and kind of using that as a springboard, what is one thing in your time here, since you are a freshman, it's your first year, what's been one of your favorite elements of being a student here at Evangel?
Honestly, I'd say the close community. I know that a lot of people mention that as
right.
one of the things that draw them in here, but like,
it's true. Yeah.
It is. But whenever I first came here, I was actually looking at a couple other schools, and originally I was not even going to be coming over to Evangel. I was dead set on Southwest Baptist University in Bolivar.
Okay.
But I was here for Founders Weekend, and it was Thursday night devotionals on Scott's Second North. By the way, love my Scott guys, just throwing that out there. But I mentioned that I was going through some tough stuff during that point in time, and these college students who had this random high schooler come in for the weekend, they prayed over me, and like, that was definitely where my perspective started to shift a bit.
Wow.
And having been here at Evangel for about 2.5 months, something like that.
Right.
I can definitely say without a doubt I made the right choice. I found some of the best friends I've had all my life, quite honestly, while I've been here. Lots of music nerds, lots of English nerds. It's a fun time.
Yes. You mentioned English, so I've got to bring this up.
Oh, boy.
I'm assuming you've met Dr. Ahabri.
Yeah, I have her for introduction.
Who hasn't? I had that class with her. It was one of my favorite English courses I'd ever taken. Mm-hmm. Fantastic teacher. And then I was panicked for a long time about the writing composition test. Slam dunked that first time, so I'm glad that's over with. But that's very good to hear. And I think one thing for me, just hearing from new students about the spiritual environment here, it's very enduring and heartening to hear a student. I'm sitting here, I can see your face. For those of you that have never been in a podcast before, this is how it works. It's audio format.
Yep.
I can actually see Jonathan speaking, so he's not making this up, okay? I think a lot of people, when they come here and they visit, they're like, this is too good to be true kind of thing. I was that way. I came here, I wasn't really sold at first, I was kind of digging my heels in. And over time, I fell in love with the community and the people and the environment. So it's true. You're not just advertising for Evangel. I mean,
no, I'd say that genuinely. I'm not in any way associated with the admissions department, but even though I've only been here for a couple of months, I can definitely say that I love this school. The people here are good. The professors really do take genuine interest in you. I actually had a professor the other day ask me how I was doing because he noticed I was looking very, very stressed out, and he's like, having come from a public school background and not having had the professors who pray at the beginning of a class or are that invested in you. They do speak the truth whenever they say that the professors will invest in you.
Oh, yes.
It's quite true.
Yes. So your experience has been very good, I take it.
It's been very good.
Very good.
Yes.
Awesome. Favorite class this semester, if you had to pick?
Ooh, favorite class. That is also another tricky one. Probably my intro to lit class or my music history survey 1 class.
Okay. Cool. And you're biased, of course. You've got music in your background in literature, so yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right on. Okay, well, if there's one thing that you want to see, somebody asked me this question my freshman year. I believe they were a senior at the time. If there's one thing you want to accomplish or do or see here in your time at Evangel, what would it be? Kind of a closing question.
Give me a second to think about that.
Take your time.
Quite honestly, by the time I graduated out of Evangel, I want my life to be one that's directed by God. Not just, there are days that are obviously really good, but if you don't have God in the midst of that, it doesn't feel like it has that much purpose. That's actually been one of those things that I've had to be wrestling with quite frequently, actually, but a life that's lived out each day in the Spirit, a life that's lived by God is a life that is quite worth living. It gives you a different sense of strength and perspective.
Yeah.
We're in this grand cosmic story of good versus evil. Few people tend to think about that, but
right.
I process things in narrative, obviously, English nerd. But when you think of you do pose a threat to darkness.
Right.
It changes the game entirely. Because instead of just someone who's passive, you're someone who's active in the world. And all it takes is one person being willing to speak up or even show some kindness or the love of Christ to another person, and darkness diminishes. It only takes one person for the influence of Satan to be purged from the world.
Wow. So I get the sense that you take your spiritual walk very seriously, because I'm going to just say this. And there are a lot of good people here, a lot of good people that I've interviewed and that have interviewed me, and I find it very interesting that you have that perspective so early in your career here, because for a lot of people, and I'm speaking for myself, we start to take things more seriously second, third year in. So just want to thank you for your openness with that.
Definitely.
I agree with that. I don't think, especially in the Western American church,
mm-hmm.
I don't think we realize how real the spiritual world is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it speaks volumes when you can have people go into a foreign country and see miracles or different things of that nature manifest.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, like you just got unplugged from the Matrix and you're like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very interesting. Kind of a follow-up to that, I know I said that was one of the closing questions, so this really is the closing question. I'm hesitant to ask this question because people used to ask me, and I thought I had an answer, and now God has really changed that for me. And so I'm curious, where do you feel God leading you into a career? What is your passion? What do you feel led to? Clearly, you like literature. You like music. What would you like to do with that?
I mean, I'm not necessarily sure what kind of career I want to go in. When I first, yeah, the total stereotypical freshman answer.
Right.
But I'm coming into Evangel. I thought I'm just going to be the English teacher. I'm going to do this, and it was going to be good. But when I got here, I kind of started questioning that a bit. Obviously, I love writing. It's one of my passions. I have several stories up in my brain. It's just, I can write poetry, but I cannot write prose to save my life.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, unless it's an actual physical event that's happened to me, people claim I can do wonders with that. I mean, I compose, I write. I kind of just want to be able to use all the things I have to be able to minister to others. Because, like, to me, one of the biggest, most powerful things is learning through story.
I agree.
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, sometimes I can be a bit more attracted to stories about God than sometimes reading actual scripture. I'm still working on that.
Right.
But, like, within narrative, you can find a lot of God's character that sometimes isn't necessarily revealed in scripture directly. And growing up, church kid, obviously, VeggieTales was a big thing for me.
Yes.
Like,
oh yes.
But, like, look at the story of A Snoodle's Tale, and you see this young Snoodle who's gifted in so many different ways, but the Snoodles around him make fun of him for the things that he has, and it takes the creator to be able to cast those pictures and lies into the fire, quite literally.
Right.
And those burdens are lifted from him. As someone who definitely struggled a lot with insecurity in high school, and to be fair, sometimes here in college too, in different ways, that was such a powerful thing for me. I could go on and on about different stories that have been transformational in my faith journey, but I want to be able to share some of these stories, whether through music or through actual physical stories that I have up here that I think can speak to other people. I mean, I have no idea how I'm going to do that because making ends meet is a thing, but...
That it is.
But I mean, I want to share what's been given to me, even though, yeah, I am having a bit of a dry season in my faith right now, but though feelings that are quite truthful sometimes... Okay, let me rephrase that. Feelings are valid, and they can point us to the truth, but they're not always reliable.
Right.
And just because you may feel something isn't necessarily true doesn't mean that it isn't. And so, I mean, that's probably what some might call a cop-out answer, but it's really the only answer I've got. It's... Part of faith is being willing to set aside the emotions and being able to actually bother doing things, even if in worship it feels like completely empty and lifeless, or even in scripture it feels like you're getting nothing out of it. It's part of almost being an athlete. Like, you have that, sometimes you have to put in the physical hard work that is so grueling and you feel very sore, but in the long run it ends up being worth it. So I kind of want to be able to impart some of my experiences to other people, whatever form that might take. And I don't know what that form might take, but it's okay not to know yet. I still have 3 years.
It is. Good for you. Good for you, man. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Your perspective is very inspirational, and for somebody, like I said, I when I came in, I was very career-oriented, planning-oriented, and I used to think if I said I had no idea what I was doing, that was just silly. I had to know what I was doing. So it's very cool to look back now, and now the Lord's really been working in my life in this season, and to hear your perspective is just very refreshing. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, and until next time, I am your news and podcast director, JC. I'll see you next time.